Welcome to Talking Giants, presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pinnock. And we're going to talk about Joe Schoen today and a little bit of a running with the Giants, which I feel kind of dirty even talking about this, but at this point we have to. Justin, how are we feeling? We had to push this episode early because people took our thing and started running with it and spreading misinformation and going crazy. How are you?
I'm good, Bobby. Yeah, we're gonna talk about it. It's rare that we have our run-ins with the Giants. When sometimes we do, sometimes they're memorable, sometimes they're not. The building's a little bit on fire right now, but I'm good. I had a good day. We did football today on JM Football. I did a bunch of shorts. I had a very, very productive work day. None of it centered around the New York Football Giants, and it felt kind of good.
My day revolved a little bit around the New York Giants, but you know why? a part of the reason this episode's moved up because of some special people. We got Debbie's, I think Deb Less, Sean Dudley, that's Jared Dudley's brother, Shane O'Connor, who is Shane O'Connor McGregor. How about that? Fabio Castablanco. That's not your real name, Fabio. Don't lie to me. And then Nick Sabel. If you just get rid of the I there, it's Isabel. Sean G. He's a real gangster. Sean Sid Dehar. What's up, Sid? And then Eric Biderman. He's not a Trumperman. He's a Biderman. Justin, who are these people?
These wonderful people. Wonderful. I mean, truly just awesome. People went to patreon.com/talkinggiants, and for $2 a month, you get to hang out with us live while we record our Wednesday and Friday shows in season. We're starting to go live on YouTube for our recap shows. Bobby Skinner will send you some stickers and magnets in the mail. Plus, we have new shirts, and twice a month, Bobby Skinner does some shirt raffles, and there's a chance you could win the awesome shirt that we put out of the first plane.
Can we put out a 2-plane shirt?
No, I think 1-plane shirt is enough. It made enough people mad. Mr. Mara, please fix this dumpster fire. It made some people mad. You can guess maybe who it made mad. But that's not what this episode's about. Patreon.com/talkinggiants. Thanks to our patrons. We love you.
All right, so I honestly feel kind of dirty talking about this because we are a Giants podcast with personality. We're not a personality-driven podcast, so we're going to sit here and talk about ourselves for the next 5 minutes or so. So at the end of the last podcast, Justin, I'm getting a call. And this was the podcast where we had the guy on who paid for the second plane, and I'm like, oh, great, they're going to harass us about we're making jokes about the plane, maybe pushing the limit with some of our memes or whatever. I'm like, they're going to give a shit about this, whatever. And it is the Giants' head of PR. And I want to get like a couple things out of the way before this, because this is kind of spread like not wildfire, but this is spread without us ever saying anything, and there's some misinformation that's going around. The call was about my video last week talking about why the Giants should fire specifically Joe Schoen, but Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll. I thought it was a well done video. We're going to talk not through that video, but talk about some of the takes I had in that video. Me and Justin are going to flesh it out once we get over this segment that I'm not even comfortable talking about, really. Calling me about that. And when he told me that he was calling me about that, I was like, oh, well, you have no ground to speak on here. But basically the phone call, Justin, was basically repeating over and over again, listen, Bobby, I don't listen to your stuff or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But that video bothered people within the organization. He didn't say this, but if he's calling me about it, which they rarely ever call, that clearly bothered them. Which is the part that it honestly bothers me more, that they're letting that video bother them, because that means they want to keep Joe Schoen and it's getting uncomfortable because of things like that. But just basically saying, hey, I'm just going to let you know we're never going to help you again. We're never going to do anything to help you again. Which, Justin, I thought was a little funny, because here is how the Giants have helped us in the past. In my relationship with Pat Hanlon, I don't hate Pat Hanlon. I don't think this is even coming from him. My problem's not with him. I'd have a beer and shit talk with him. I think he's doing this because they want to keep Shane, and it's getting uncomfortable, like I said. He's calling me because the crybaby organization of the Giants think doing us one favor is enough where we should be mouthpieces for the organization and not say that a team that's 2-12, the GM should be fired after 3 years. But their big favors that they've done for us, Justin, is when we went to Detroit, we were credentialed for two training camp practices in Detroit that we drove to.
Yeah.
And then I asked, it wasn't even guaranteed this past training camp, if it rains, we have sponsorship, we want to be we want to be credentialed if it rains. We're not asking for to go to press conferences. Just if it rains, can we go observe the practice so that we can fulfill our sponsorships? So calling me, telling me, oh, well, we're just never going to help you again. And basically being like, I'm doing you a favor, because don't come to me in July and saying, hey, I got these sponsors, because it's just not going to happen. Which to me is fine, but acting like you've done us this huge favor drives me a little nuts. And here's the part that bothers me too, is you want to know why training camp is something that is so important for us? Because your sorry ass team is 0-0, and we know that interest will die down of your mess of a team in the second half. Yeah. That's why training camp's not that important for other fan bases. For Talking Giants, training camp is a key moment. It's a huge part of every year, because realistically, it's the only time your fucking sorry ass team doesn't have a losing record. It's the only time, because we know that it's coming. So at least let's enjoy it right now, 0-0. Let's just talk football. Let's talk with fans. And training camp's a good time, no matter what. But for us, it's a key part.
It's imperative.
Also, I also don't want to, like, I'm thankful that they let us into the Lions practice. That should be no question. Like, if we wanted to go get credentialed, Justin, we should be able to, right? There's people who are openly fans who are credentialed by the New York Giants. Here's the issue. I don't want to live in New Jersey. And Justin, we don't want to be credentialed, because then Justin can't cheer when the team scores and boo when the team plays bad. And then and here's the main reason though, because you got to deal with bullshit like this on the fucking daily. Yeah. Because they cry anytime you write anything negatively. That is what happened. Now, they did not tell us to take it down. That people were spreading that rumor that they wanted to take it down. And that's where
they also have no power to tell us to take a video down.
But they didn't even ask to take it down.
Yeah, no, they didn't ask. No, they did not ask.
So, like, I don't want this to be straight as like, oh, what they're trying to do is kind of just badger us.
Yeah, they just weren't happy. They just weren't happy that you made a video saying that the Giants should fire Joe Schoen.
Which, again, but I think it's just crazy that you just lost 35-14. Your stadium is filled with the opposing team's fans. There's multiple shots of people with trash bags over their hands. You're 2-12. You've lost 9 straight games. You're 0-8 at home, averaging 10 points per game at home. You just had a second plane fly over. There's probably going to be a third, by the way. And you're getting ready to have the worst Giants season in your 100-year anniversary, and you're worried about a fucking video talking about firing the GM.
And the head of Giants PR is calling Bobby Skinner on a Sunday night.
Yeah, like, you will call us whatever you want. Like, you're calling me about that. So yeah, congrats. Don't help us. Guess what? We won't ask. Fine. Okay. If we want to go to a joint practice, we will do what we would have done if you wouldn't have helped us anyways. We would have paid some random opposing team's fan base $20 for their tickets. We would have went, sat in the stands, had a better view, and not been prohibited from taking video of it. We'll actually be better at what we're doing. Okay, so we'll actually be better at what we're doing. So, and here's my thing: is don't act like you've done me this great favor either. Okay, because the New York Giants have harmed my career by being so bad. Okay. So don't act like you've bent over backwards.
Yeah, man. I have respect for Pat Hamlin. I have respect for people who work in that building.
People that he works with daily that I can't stand. He's not one of them.
Yeah, I mean, I have respect for people that work in that building. It's right now. It's not any. Nobody wants to be 2-14, and nobody wants to, or whatever the record is. Nobody wants them to be this bad, right? Even Joe Schoen doesn't want them to be this bad. My only ask, as the years have gone on and people have been like, oh, but would you ever do this with the Giants? Would you ever do that? Like, my only ask as the years have gone on is, I recognize that the Giants exist. The Giants can recognize, or not, the Giants can recognize that we exist and what we're doing, and that could be it. We don't really mess with them, and I think, Bobby, at the end of the day,
and we've never the video was well done. It was not personal.
And I want to expand upon this, where we are not the kind of show, we are not the type of channel or podcast or fans. You will never hear us come on here and say, I think this guy's a effing a-hole, and I think this guy's just a bad dude. I don't think we do not attack anybody personally. In our analysis, we may joke around, say this, that, but we do not attack anybody personally. It does not get personal. It really doesn't. So I think it's no different than any other reporter. Now, reporters have unions that protect them and shit like that. But also, whoever in the Giants making these decisions, or maybe even if it's Hanlon himself saying like, oh, well, this is the price that they're going to pay for.
I don't even think it's Hanlon. Again, people will tweet at Pat Hanlon. Again, next time I see Pat, I'll talk to him.
From a business standpoint, us having access to the Giants, our company, John Boy Media, I'm 1,000% sure they could care less. Our ability to help John Boy Media be profitable and grow in football has zero and zilch to do with having access to the New York Football Giants. It does not. It has zero access.
And honestly,
meaning.
The person who has been the nicest to us and just real, it has been Hanlon. When the whole videotaping thing, he called and we talked through it. Okay. We shook hands and we talked through it. There's other people that work with him that drive me nuts. When we're trying to interview Sandro Platzgummer 3 years ago in the summer, and it's like, hey, he wants to do this by the book, so can you just clear it? And you say no. That's the type of people I don't like. Well, I actually don't mind. The handler's doing his job. My thing is like, you don't realize this makes it look worse? Like, you didn't learn from the whole ESPN thing? Like that L. Duncan segment, nobody saw it.
No.
I saw Pat Hanlon's tweet and I went looking for it and I could not find it. And what happens is when you call them, like I can't get. So again, thank you for the Alliance credentials. Part of me didn't want to share this, but why not? Like if you're going to call me at 8:30 after you lost 35-14, 9 straight, 0-8 at home, complaining about a video that says a fired GM, you know what? I am going to share that. And you're telling me so why am I going to give you the courtesy of not sharing this? What's even the point?
Yeah. So I mean that's that. I mean that's it. I think. Listen, if Joe Schoen and Brian Dable, if they are fired, which I think that they will be, because I think the temperature is too hot. There's a reason why there are people in the building making these calls and panic. This is panic. This is full-on panic. And I don't blame anybody for panicking or being paranoid in that building because, you never know if your job is on the line. So you're going to bat for the people in the building, and you're going for bat for people that are telling you what to do. So sure, you got to do your job and you got to get something done, right? But if they're fired and they're done, I very much can see us having a conversation with Pat down the line and all of this being fine. That's how I think it's going to work out.
And the people in the Giants building will be a lot dirtier than what we will. They'll start sharing all this stuff, throwing dirt on them out the door like they've done time after time. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I mean, it's like we're not calling anybody bad people. We're not calling, this guy's a F&A hole. Again, that's not how we operate. I really don't think that's how we operate. And it's a shame if anybody sees us that way. I will really disagree with you that you're wrong, that's not how we do. That's not the company that we work for. That is not the way that John Boy Media goes about analyzing sports. We do not go after any personal attacks. So if everything is professional and we just professionally disagree with what you're doing, especially when the team is so bad, that's a you problem, man. It's a you problem if you don't like it.
Yep. Made a video talking about the third-year GM of the worst team in the NFL saying they should be fired. Trust me, I hope to never make a video talking about firing people again. I would much rather you guys just be good. But unfortunately, you're not. And you haven't been for a long, long time. Talk to me about something, Justin.
I will talk to you about something. I'll talk to you about DraftKings. Grab your favorite team's jersey. What a transition. And some snacks. And head to the couch for another Sunday of action-packed football. Get even closer to the action each Sunday with our partners at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Right now, all new customers, if you bet just $5 on anything, you're going to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins when you use code WORLD. Talking Giants versus... Hey, if there's one thing I was thinking last night, and I was thinking Sunday night...
It truly is. Remember when I brought that slogan and you're like, what are you even talking? Who's against us? And then every time.
Yeah, you know it.
And then it just started piling on.
And don't forget, it's been a while since we've had this. Then don't forget to stay in on the action and use your $150 in bonus bets on DraftKings same-game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. That's why I love DraftKings, because they don't use code Giants or New York or whatever. We use code WORLD. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code WORLD That's promo code WORLD only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Sign up for DraftKings. Use promo code WORLD. Stick it to the man. You'll be glad you did.
You'll be glad you did. All right, Justin, let's talk about the reasons why we do think Joe Schoen should be fired, and that's it. Sorry, I got an alert. Let's talk about the reasons why we think Joe Schoen should be fired, Justin. I made the video that was 35 minutes long. We don't
That
need
made the Giants mad, by the way, so you should watch it.
Yeah.
You almost should change the title of the video. Why the Giants should fire Joe Schoen, the Giants saw this video and got mad by it.
Yeah, put the link in the description.
I will, yes. Very well done.
What did you think was the strongest point on why Joe Schoen should be fired? Like, I don't want to just go talk through the entire video. But mine was, Justin, and I keep it as simple as this. After year 3, and we've said this too many times on the pod, is the roster good? And the good parts of the roster are you responsible for? And it goes back to the stupid top 10 exercise that everyone's saying, Bobby, shut up about the top 10. Just shut up about it. Is that after 3 years, your top 10, and whatever order you want to do, is Dexter Lawrence, Andrew Thomas, brought in by Dave Gettleman, Malik Neighbors, Joe Schoen draft pick, Brian Burns, a Joe Schoen trade, Bobby Okereke, a Schoen free agency, Kayvon Thibodeau, Schoen draft, Slayton, a Gettleman draft, Jermaine Illuminor free agency, Tyrone Tracy draft, Wan'Dale Robinson draft. Like, that's a bad top 10, and your top 2 on it weren't brought in by you. Like, we can get into all these things about how they dealt with this situation and breaking down draft class by draft class. But the end of the day is, have you done a good job with the assets that you've had? And I think the answer is no.
No, and why Joe Schoen, I think, why Joe Schoen should be let go has really very little to do with Daniel Jones. And I think that's
the thing I want to hammer in this too, because that's the reason they want to keep Joe Schoen. It's because they want to give him a pass on Daniel Jones because of the ownership's strong feelings. And that's what I think, like, Daniel Jones is definitely a mistake, and this clearly a mistake. But I want all this, to me, let's just forget about the Daniel Jones thing, because they're not going to judge him on that. So let's talk about every other part of this for Joe Schoen.
Right, which, again, it has very little to do. It has a part of it. But I would think the phrase Joe Schoen deserves to draft a franchise quarterback, that's a phrase that we've dissected. That's a phrase that we've talked about. I think Joe Schoen would, quote-unquote, deserve the chance to draft that franchise quarterback if the rest of the roster were in just a better spot. It doesn't have to be perfect. Year 3 of a regime. Maybe they did overvalue and, wrongly assess where they were after 2022, right? But that doesn't change that your draft classes are bad. I would say the Darren Waller move. What's like the one move that really is the total accumulation of how they misevaluated their 2022 season? The Darren Waller trade, which at the end of the day, I would count that as a positive for Joe Schoen. You traded Kadarius Toney away for a top 100 pick, which is freaking awesome, and then you turned it into Darren Waller, which, even with his flaws and his injury concerns, it kind of gave you a little bit of a spark on offense heading into last year. So let's just, again, remove Daniel Jones and remove the misevaluation of the 2022 season here for a second. The draft classes are awful. The draft classes are bad. Especially the first two. The first two highlight it. And the third draft class, I'm sorry, now that we're at the end of the season, the third draft class on a two-win team, by the way, is not doing enough for me to say, you know what, this guy does deserve year 4 and year on, and he does deserve to do one of the hardest things in sports and pick a franchise quarterback. Bobby, that top 10 exercise is very, very powerful. And you did 2 teams. You did the Lions, who I think is the example of what you want to strive in terms of team building. They kick ass on defense, on that defensive front, right? Led by Aiden Hutchinson. They especially kick ass on the offensive line, led by Penei Sewell, really good tackle. Kevin, they kick ass on the offensive line. That's the example of quintessential team building. But then you also showed a team like the Bears. The Bears Bears aren't a great team, and I certainly don't think Ryan Poles' process per se is awesome. He's gotten lucky with a lot of the stuff that he's done. But you compare the top 10s of even the top 10 players on the Chicago Bears, compare them to the top 10 players of the Giants. The list is stunning. The list is stunning,
Romo
and I
Dunze and Caleb
suggest
Williams don't even get on the Bears' top 10 list.
And I really recommend, Bobby didn't have time to do all average or good teams in the NFL compared to the Giants. I recommend, like, hey, if you're this invested in this team, and you want to convince your buddy that maybe, hey, Joe Schoen, Brian Dable, how can you fire these guys and just keep going through this cycle? You can't do it. If you want to show your buddy at home, be like, this guy just doesn't get it. Go through maybe even the fringe playoff teams now and the playoff teams, and you come up with their top 10 lists and compare it with the top 10 lists of the Giants. And I guarantee you're going to hold these two lists side by sides with a lot of teams in the NFL, and it's going to be stunning. Stunning. Guarantee you. And I think that's the best way to do it.
And let's even go through the top 10, because top 10 is usually means good. The first two are Gettleman guys. Number 3, really good Malik Neighbors. Number 4 is somebody that you paid $30 million for and traded a second and fifth round pick for.
I don't even love.
The next one is Bobby Okereke, who's had a bad season, like an objectively bad football season. Kayvon Thibodeau's the next one, who's definitely not living up to his draft hype. And even if you say he's a good player, people will argue that. Next one would be Slayton, a Gettleman draft pick. Illuminor, that's probably my favorite free agency deal that he's done. Got him on a value. Tyrone Tracy, he's been a good player. You've seen his production go down a little bit since DJ's went out of the lineup, but still think he's a good part of the future. And then Wan'Dale Robinson, who's like, are we really happy with what we're getting out of that investment in the second round pick? So like that's a bad place to be in. And the reason for that, though, like you said, people were like, oh, because of Daniel Jones and stuff and letting guys go. And I think letting guys like McKinney go does stink. I don't mind trading Leonard Williams for a second and fifth. And that's why this whole video, funny how it got, it's like I defended some of those things in there, and some of the processes in there. But the reality is here's the drafts are bad. Kayvon Thibodeau, good, not a good fifth pick. Evan Neal, bust. Now let's get to the second round. Wan'Dale Robinson, not getting your money's worth at pick 42. Josh Azudu, crazy bust. Like almost as big as of a bust as Evan Neal. Cordell Flott, a backup corner at the end of the day, not very good. Daniel Bellinger, who's been a third string tight end for you this year in the fourth round. Dane Belton, a backup, and he's bad when he plays. Mike McFadden, that's a good one. But again, he's not this fifth round home run hit that you write home about and tell your kids about. Like, you got this guy in the fifth round. He's a good player. He has limitations, but he's a good player in the fifth round. DJ Davison, bad. McKeithen, gone. Beavers, gone. And then the reason why you're in these spots is because you do draft for need, because of bad process. Like he admitted, we needed to fill positions in that draft with all those picks. That's bad processes. And the 2023 draft goes into it saying we need to add speed, number one, and we don't have a center on the roster. So you have Deonte Banks, who's bad, looking like a bust of a first round. JMS in the second round, you had to draft center. And listen, I love the JMS pick. I really did. But he's been a below average center. Jalen Hyatt, he's a useless player. He's a negative when he's on the field. Eric Gray in the fifth round, he's a third string running back with a fumble problem. Trey Hawkins, he's been a healthy and active all year until that one game. Jordan Riley, he's been a healthy scratch. Javarius Owens gone. And then the defense was like, well, now he's got this most recent draft class. Listen, I feel like I think we always overvalue rookie classes in the moment, unless they're just flat out terrible. And if they're flat out terrible, we say, well, you can't judge a rookie. You got to give him year 2. And they usually end up being terrible in the next year too. Shout out Evan Neal. Even Andrew Thomas showed a lot of progression in his rookie year, where I'm like, this is a good rookie season. Not a good first half, but a good rookie season. Malik Neighbors, that's a hit. Tyrone Tracy, that's a hit. Even if Tyrone Tracy is someone who is being overrated right now, he's a hit. I like Tyler Newman. I like Andrew Phillips. I need a second round and a third round DB to have a better combined stats of 1 pass breakup and 0 interceptions before I declare them these massive hits. Because right now you're thrilled with them. A year from now, if they're the same exact player that they are now or slightly better, you're going to be over criticizing them, and we'll probably be defending them. They're not as bad as saying it. Happens every year. Happened along with last year's class. Theo Johnson, I have stake on the Theo Johnson thing. He was my tight end too in the class. Having the same amount of yards as Daniel Bellinger as a rookie doesn't get you the slam dunk win. So it's the bad roster and his points, Joe Schoen's points of pride, and we'll talk about the QB away and close thing. His points of pride in that bye week press conference was the most recent draft class and the fact that they thought we're close. Basically, didn't say QB away, but was saying we're a QB away without saying it. And the draft class is not enough for me, and we can talk about the QB away stuff too.
And the reason why the draft class is playing because they had holes on the roster. That's also part of it too.
Rookies shouldn't have to come. You shouldn't have all your rookies playing their rookie season.
You really
Even
shouldn't.
if they're good draft picks, they shouldn't be playing their rookie season.
Really shouldn't. You really shouldn't. You find a way to keep McKinney, which they really, I really think they should have done. We've talked about that. Tyler Nubin is maybe, hey, he's splitting reps with Jason Pinnock. And I think that would
just
have been
pair him with, put him over. He's better than Pinnock. Put him over Pinnock and have him with McKinney. Have a nice safety duo.
But also, that's part of Joe Schoen's issue is that if he were to bring back McKinney, there was no way that he would draft. There was no way he would draft Tyler Nubin because this is a GM that drafts for need and not necessarily just getting good football players.
If Kamari Lassiter lasted into their pick in the second round, Andrew Phillips wouldn't be on this team.
Right.
So again, I think the process in their drafting is bad, and their evaluations. You can't be bad at both. Which again, I think process when it comes to draft is wildly overrated. It's basically because the Giants were one of the one teams that did it. It gets talked about a little more.
Just don't take a running back in the first 2 rounds. Basically,
don't take the running back second round. No, you can take him in the first round if you're ready for it. If you're the 2018 New York Giants, don't take a running back in the second round. The Lions getting a Jahmyr Gibbs in the first round, awesome pick. The Giants in 2018 taking 1 second overall, bad job. Like it's basically just avoid that.
Yeah. And I was telling people at work today because Max Manus, I think he's been listening to some Talking Giants episodes, so I appreciate you, Max. But Max Manus is a big Yankee guy, big baseball guy. He asked some sort of question, and I basically just answered with, for how simple or complicated you think the game of football is, here's what it comes down to. Do you draft well or do you not? Do you draft good football players in the NFL draft, or do you draft bad football players in the NFL draft? And yeah, there are some examples of really, of bad teams or even average teams with really good quarterbacks that are really elevating them. Are the Buffalo Bills a fucking 6-7 win team without Josh Allen? Is that what they are? Probably. But yeah, Josh Allen elevates them. But at the end of the day, you even see a lot of bad quarterbacks or a lot of average quarterbacks that are elevated by not so great rosters, right? That's what the NFL is. Even remove the quarterback position for a second, which is very important, and that does make the NFL a little bit more nuanced, and so does coaching. But do you draft good players or do you draft bad players? That is the sport of the NFL in a nutshell. A very complicated, nuanced sport that is kind of basically what it boils down to. And Joe Schoen, through 3 years, regardless of if they misevaluated 2022, regardless of if they did wrong by Saquon, Daniel Jones, blah, 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 through 3 years, Joe Schoen has been a horrible, horrible drafter of players. The most important thing that you need to do as a general manager and as a team in football, the Giants have done bad in. Done.
Absolutely. And I do these draft day speeches every year to set myself up for this is my stance on things. So mine in 2022 was hey, early signs of a smart guy with Joe Schoen, good process, blah, blah, blah. But here's what we don't know. Can he draft good players? And football is a simple game when it comes down to that. We've seen that he hasn't been. This most recent one, because it was talking about just taking a quarterback because if you don't take one now, you'll never get your chance or whatever. I said, okay, but if he gets fired, it's not because he didn't take a quarterback. If he took a quarterback and that quarterback can be in a franchise pick, does that buy you time? Yes, it's the hardest thing to do in NFL GMing, right? You get grace, right? It also lifts up other players and it makes players look better than they are. And ultimately you win games if you do the hardest thing to do. But if you don't draft a quarterback, you better be building a good roster or showing legit signs of it. You get the patience of the fan base or the owner because you can point to and say flat out, look at what he's done with the talent acquisition, but obviously we need to get a quarterback. That hasn't happened with Joe Schoen. So you don't get flowers for modernizing the building and having good process. I don't think the process is great anyways. I think it's a mediocre process, but it looks good because it's following Dave Gettleman and Jerry Reese. We could go through all the bad things in it. And there's things I like about Joe. I think as a trader, I think he's been mostly good. I think the cap situation, he hasn't sacrificed the future, but at the same time, and he took his medicine the first year in 2022. But at the same time, the reason is because you let good players walk because you signed Daniel Jones and traded for Darren Waller, right? And you decide just to let them walk instead of trying to make it work with like Julian Love or McKinney or
the Giants have $1.9 million in cap space, and they're a 2-win football team. I understand they're in a more healthier cap situation next year. Guess what? There's a lot of other teams that are in a more healthy situation
they're middle
than the
of the
Giants
pack.
are. They're middle of the pack, and as a 2-win football team that now doesn't have a starting QB on their roster, that kind of freaking sucks to be. You know what? To be middle of the pack. I'm sorry. So I'm not going to... Joe Schoen, okay, thanks for not tanking the cap situation like Dave Gettleman, but I also don't think he deserves the flowers of, all right, for being middle of the pack, for being a 2-win football team.
Yeah, and that's one of my worries is if they keep him, right? Like, here's my 2 biggest worries if they keep him outside of, like, him not being good at his job. Here's the one. He uses this money. He spends. He backloads. He does what he can to get the most wins out of this team. The other is... We've talked about this, and I did my mock draft. I like Cam Ward. Got to watch him more in depth. He doesn't even have the option to say if these quarterbacks are worth that pick or not. He doesn't even have the option because he has to take a quarterback. So again, can you recover from that? Yes, if you take the wrong quarterback. With the Giants, do I worry about them not recovering it well? Yes, because they specifically have a hard time saying, you know what, this guy's just not cut out for it. They like to make excuses for people. But that's not Joe Schoen's issue at the end of the day. I think that's the team, the organization as a whole. But those are my worries with keeping him and the whole coaching situation where we can talk about. But at the end of the day, and this is the other thing I want to get rid of, is now that the Giants have gotten fucking their asses kicked ever since they benched Daniel Jones, and they tried in their bye week press conference, tried to pin it on him, like, well, it's the red zone. And that's the quarterback's fault.
Well, they've been doing it all year, remember. It wasn't just the bye week. They've been literally framing him all year.
Yeah, which again, Daniel Jones is not good. This is not the argument. Is
right, it's not a defensive Daniel Jones.
What I want to get rid of is if they had the good quarterback, which again, you're assuming a lot there, they win some of their one-score games early. One, don't ever talk to me about one-score games as a positive. When you're talking about one-score games, it can only be brought up to me as a negative, as on the side of you're winning them and you're not as good as you look. Using one-score losses in games to justify anything to me is dumb. Yes, a good QB can mask a bad roster and win games, but let's look at the roster and stop sliding in this imaginary QB1 that we don't know exists. And even if you do, you assume so much when you do that. You assume that good QB is going to have no bad or mediocre games. You assume nothing happens differently from the other teams based on a more competitive game. You have the 28th worst point differential or 31st worst point differential in the NFL. And here's some teams that had lost one-score games. The 2020 Giants, 6-10, they lost 5 one-score games. Was that a good roster? 2019 went 4-12. They lost 5 one-score games. Was that a good roster? 2018, the first year of Pat Shurmur, 5-11. They lost 8 one-score games. Was that a good roster?
Do you remember 2015?
Oh yeah, 2015. Yeah, that's the and that team is actually, I think, one of the best arguments for like they weren't good, but like that team was a lot better than what we have right now. Is one of
yeah, because you had Eli Manning and Odell Beckham Jr. I mean, when Eli Manning was still slinging it, and Odell was there too, and dude, that defense was really that 2015 team. That wonder what team is better. And I wonder
Landon Collins dropping the interception versus the Patriots is just
but I mean that 2015. I mean that was a team that used like our records in one-score games, and man, we don't really have a defense as a reason to overspend it. Yeah, it worked for 1 year, but you can make an argument that 2015 into 2016 season/off season was one of the things that kind of started to set the Giants back, because then it's the cap situation and all that shit, and then the decline of Eli, and then you don't stick with your gut to bench him, and all that shit like that. We can revisit that one day if we really like. But
here's the whole QB away thing that I want to talk about, because people have brought up Houston and Washington are examples of the QB saves you. It does. It doesn't mean that those teams did a good job of building the roster for the 3 years before they got the quarterback. It's more an example of why you should reset GM and head coach with the quarterback, unlike the Chicago Bears did. If you land a franchise quarterback, it will cover up a lot of holes on the roster. It'll probably lead to you winning games. It'll make other decisions look better. Like I said, it's the best thing you can do as a GM, and it's also the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
So I don't know why we're granting Joe Schoen, who talked about protecting themselves with Drew Lock, as doing that. In
a year, by the way, that there is very. I mean, I started to watch Cam Ward. I have not watched Shedeur Sanders. In a year where nationally, there was excitement around the top 3 quarterbacks. There is not a shred of the same level of excitement from national people that I really think know what they're doing when it comes to drafting and scouting. And of course, that we don't go off of those. We don't solely go off of those people.
Just in season, we don't have time to fucking do full evaluations.
But the energy, but even just think back to the energy that Caleb provided, that Jaden Daniels provided, like Drake May provided. The energy off of the top 3 last year, and even freaking J.J. McCarthy and Michael Penix, they were winning playoff games and college football, and the energy that came off of those people. There is nowhere near the same level of energy and excitement to be like, we're gonna dive into these quarterbacks. And I think that's just bad process of, all right, well, we have to force this pick at the top. Bobby, before we talk about quarterback or bust, let's regroup our thoughts. Let's regroup and let's talk about Captain
Shady
Morgan.
Rays.
Oh, intercepted.
Get ready for the season. I ain't the Giants defense. Get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. But here's the game changer, right? The Giants need more game changers. They need more Shady Rays. If your shades ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, don't sweat it. They have the most insane protection in all of eyewear, guys. Every pair is backed by lost or broken replacements. If you don't love your shades, exchange for a new pair or return worry-free within 30 days. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season, baby. Go to shadyrays.com and use code GIANTS. 50% off. What? 2+ pair of polarized sunglasses. That's code GIANTS at shadyrays.com. Go get yours now. Shady Rays. You'll be glad you did. So I want to talk about Washington. The Washington Commanders were more than a QB away. The Commanders added a new GM, head coach, both coordinators. They brought in a new quarterback, obviously, Austin Eckler, tight end 1 and 2. Their entire offensive line outside of Sam Cosmi, 2 starting edges, 2 starting linebackers, a nickel, and a safety. They also had good process. They didn't draft for need. And guess what they drafted in the 2nd round? A defensive tackle, which that was the strength of their team when they took over it with Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne. They also drafted a tight end while having Zach Ertz. They're also the 7th seed in the NFC, 1 game up on the 8th seed while playing a last place schedule too. Like they're not as, they are a success story, but they're also not contenders right now. So like the whole 1-score games, which has obviously went out the window or were close. Like, yeah, quarterbacks can hide a lot of stuff. My question is, have you done a good job? And show me why. Show me the reason why you deserve to draft a quarterback. Not just because you haven't drafted one and because John Mara also wanted to re-sign Daniel Jones when you signed him. Show me why you deserve to draft a quarterback. And I just don't think they did. And I want to mention some things that I think Joe Schoen has done. Well, I think free agency has been mostly good, right? Look for value, guys. When the misses are there, they're not these huge, big whiffs like Dave Gettleman had. I think the O-line's looked really good. Not really good. It's looked the best it's looked in a long time. Now, was it predicated on Andrew Thomas, the Dave Gettleman draft pick? Yes. And was it a good run blocking unit early? No. But Jermaine Eleanor is a good signing. Runyon, again, we're not writing home about that signing, but it's solid. GVR is a good plug-in guy, and then JMS is kind of that 5th guy. But the reason why you have all these vets on there is because you missed on Neil, Azudu, McKeith, and JMS, and Glowinski failed for you. So there's that. And then, again, I think the trades have been mostly solid. You can poke holes in them, but I think the trades have been mostly solid. And even when they don't like trade a guy like Aziz, I think it's better to have that standpoint of like we're not just going to give guys away because when there's guys that people want, we want to have that's how you get Leonard Williams by having a hard line with Aziz and like I'm not giving him away for a late sixth is how you get Leonard Williams for a second and fifth when nobody thought that was even possible.
Yeah. And even the same thing with again getting Tony for the top 100 pick was awesome, was great. And you see what he's done. So yeah, trades and free agency. I think Joe Schoen has a good understanding of what free agency is supposed to be, and I think he's even publicly come out and said this. Where free agency is a little bit about plugging little holes here and there. It's not about making these huge big swings. That's how we're gonna build. We're gonna build through free agency. They used Illuminor as this. Hey, it's a little bit of a plug situation. I liked using interior offensive line. I wish they would have attacked cornerback a little bit more in free agency and getting some more veterans in here, because that's what I just think the NFL is. But neither here nor there. I've liked his approach with trades. I've liked his approach with free agency. And the biggest process piece of what I like about Joe Schoen, Bobby, I don't know if I'm jumping the gun here, but the biggest process piece of what I liked about Joe Schoen when it comes to the NFL draft is exactly what he did at pick 6 last year by passing up on a quarterback and quarterbacks that he deemed not worthy of taking and taking what he and the organization thought was probably the best player on the board in Malik Neighbors. I think that is great process. But again, the worry is
that process is gone.
We don't feel that he will get the opportunity to do the same thing this offseason because there will be an insane and immense amount of pressure from ownership, fans, everybody to take a quarterback no matter what. And that is the worry.
And when hey, listen, I'm hoping they get a quarterback in this draft. Like, that's obviously my hope. And now, again, people, there is some people like, well, you should have fucking took one. That'll be the one thing people hold against him the most is not taking one of those QBs. Some of those guys are gonna have to light it, start playing really well or playing at all before I do that. But like I said, that process is out the window. And we do know he wanted a quarterback, trying to trade it for Drake May. But it's like you said, that process is completely out the window. And some people just take a swing no matter what. And I kind of understand that, even though you'll never get me saying to take a quarterback you don't think's good for the fuck of it. So that's where it is. And if you want to use what ownership's influence on them has been as a defense, to me that only makes it worse. Because if they were letting ownership's influence on them really mess with them after year 1 or year 2, well, after year 3, it's going to be really, really heavy. And if they even think about firing Brian Dable and keep Joe Schoen, I will. You want to talk about, us, being critical? We will lose it. This fan base, like the guy who came on the show yesterday, we are not stupid. Okay, we're like you're gonna do the same type of failure again because the head coach is the one who has to deal with the brunt of it every day. And because the GM is the higher position where he can make that recommendation. So if you do that, we're going to lose our freaking minds. So again, I just think he's not done a good job. And yeah, does the ownership make us feel good about going forward? Having Tim McDonald in there and John Mayer's influence. And there's even, people in there who are like, yeah, his influence stinks. I don't think he's demanding any signings or anything, but he does. We saw it on Hard Knocks. He gives his recommendation, and when you give your recommendations when they stink, well, then you're going to take that a little more serious because you want to save your job. And hell, that might even save their jobs is the fact that John Mara also wanted to keep Daniel Jones, because if he didn't say anything and it went bad, you might be just getting fired. But the reality is that's more the reason to let them go, because now you need someone who's fresh in here. Nope, I'm the GM. Hopefully they draft good the first 2 years. And guess what helps you ignore ownership's recommendations? Being like, yeah, well, guess what? This is the way I do it. I'm the GM. I have built good rosters, so I'm not worried about my job security. I don't care about your influence. Okay? Because I have done a good job. Okay? So you will not fire me, and I will do what I think is right. Okay? If you want to influence me on the way we hire the guy who cuts the grass, sure. But with the quarterback decision or making the decision on letting, Tyler Newbin walk down the road or whatever, you will not have any impact on that with me. So That's where we're at. Justin, why don't you talk to us about something before we finish off? Because I do have some things to say at the end.
Yeah, Captain Morgan. Captain Morgan. Today's episode is sponsored by Captain Morgan, the official spice rum of the NFL. The NFL season is where legends are born, on and off the field. Some are of last-second plays that turn the tide and change a team's destiny, while others are friends who follow the captain from within them to make a regular get-together. Remember Howie Mandel used to do this? Deal or no deal. To make a regular get-together into the stuff of legends. So grab your crew, grab a captain and a cola. Make it a story to remember because legends start when you follow the captain. Visit followthecaptain.com for more. Please drink responsibly. Captain Morgan Original Spiced Rum, 35% alcohol by volume. Captain Morgan Rum Company in New York, New York. One of my favorite parts of this year is Captain Morgan getting a kick out of Bobby Skinner threatening people to drink responsibly or else. You'll be glad you did.
Yeah, or else. That goes for everybody. How do you feel that we talked about the whole Joe Schoen thing, laid out our case? Again, watch the video. It's a little more detailed and stuff, talking through that stuff.
Graphics.
How do you feel about how everything has transpired over the last 2 days?
I'm nervous for the future because I will say there are some people that are like, well, what do you want to do? And I'll tell you what, man, I don't fucking know. I know that I think they should move in a different direction. The biggest reason being, when's the last time the Giants had the number 1 pick in the draft, Bobby? Do you know?
I don't think they've ever had it. I think the second, when they had the Saquon pick, I think that was the highest they ever been in the draft.
Maybe there was one point where they had the number 1 overall pick.
I think Lawrence Taylor was second overall too.
Yeah,
I don't think they've ever had the first overall pick.
So this is, maybe
The reality is you hope that John Mara just lucks into hiring the right GM and head coach. Or hiring the right GM and he hires the right head coach.
Yeah.
Which is doable.
See, teams do it all the time. You see, I was talking about today, I don't think Cincinnati's ownership is very good, per se. They're a cheap-ass team. Their facilities are awful. You see some practice videos where Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are walking across a concrete street getting to the practice field. They have one of the more smaller front offices in the NFL, but guess what? They make it freaking work. The Rams also have a very small front office. Now, a very rich franchise. I think they do that on purpose, the Rams. But, it's built in numerous and multiple different ways. And there's been plenty of hires as the years have gone on, Bobby, where the NFL world kind of rolls their eyes at, oh, geez, look at this schmuck that this team just hired.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody knows who this guy is. And then lo and behold, teams go on to have success. So, that is the thing that I am worried about, though. I am worried about the future. I feel more confident in a future that does not, that unfortunately, and this is really unfortunate because after 2022, you really like Joe Schoen. I really freaking loved Brian Daboll. And even part of me still likes Brian Daboll, and it gets excited with the idea of Brian Daboll working with a competent quarterback and a competent offense. I just don't believe in his ability to coach a complete football team, and that defense is a disaster right now. The defensive and the coordinator situation is a disaster within itself too.
We'll do a Daboll thing next week.
Nobody wants to freaking come work here. So yeah, I go, okay, so we'll do the Daboll thing next week. But I'm just really I'm nervous for the future because even though, again, I feel a little bit more confident in it when it doesn't include Joe Schoen, but there is still a worry that, yeah, I'm nervous about what John Mara, who he might bring in, what he might bring in, and nervous about what that might be because it hasn't worked, man. It just has not worked since basically the days of Ernie Accorsi and that core that he built. Yeah.
But when I say hope you get the right, because again, you'll never hear me defend the Giants ownership, especially with not just influence, but having Tim McDonald being, promoted over the years on the worst team in the NFL. But John Mara is also not Woody Johnson, where he's tanking you type of shit. There's different levels of ownership, when you have Dave Teppers and I don't think he's Dave Tepper, Woody Johnson. I think he's normal, probably a little behind the times. We really need to hope that he gets the right GM. Listen, if Joe Schoen was just better at talent evaluating, we wouldn't be talking about.
Oh no!
If Joe Schoen just drafted better, we wouldn't be talking about the ownership.
I'm excited.
Right now.
I'm excited about the future if Joe Schoen's drafting well. So
yeah, you're not forgiving, but we're all right. The Daniel Jones thing, whatever. But you built a kind of a 2-year out of it. We're out of it. Let's move forward. But the issue is that he hasn't, and that's not John Mara's fault. Anything else on the whole Giants PR shit that you want to close it on, because I'm never talking about that again. I feel gross talking about ourselves like that, but it is what it is.
No. I mean, we're gonna do what we do. We've never really had to rely on the Giants for anything.
No, which is why that call was insane to me.
Yeah. So we're gonna do what we do, and I hope that I hope that they don't view us, which they're gonna view us how they want. They're gonna.
I don't care. I'm at this point. I just don't care.
No, but I hope that they don't view us as like, oh, these guys are just straight up jerks and assholes.
But no, here's the thing. This is, and again, this is about the Giants organization, not one single person. They do,
because they can't really control what we do, and
they do.
Which is a shame.
That's the way they run. Even before this, Justin, we've had conversations, because it's like, because our company, has like obviously had like Yes Network. They have relations. They do the Aaron Boone thing, whatever. So people will be like, well, what about you guys? And it's like, yeah, that's never happening. Like this, no matter what happens, that's never happening.
No.
And then if it did happen, we'd have basically like sell our soul for it.
Yeah.
Which we're obviously not going to do. I feel bad for, like I said, I was like, I feel bad for the guys on the post game. I said in the call, I feel bad on the guys on the post game. They have to pretend like this isn't, the worst thing ever.
Which I never want to be in that situation.
Yeah, no, never gonna do. Somebody in one of our group chats said, "Thank God that I put on there the only help they've given us is the Lions tickets, because if that screenshot went around with us saying, people would be like, oh my gosh, they're shilling for the Giants for this or whatever." Like, they've never helped us with an interview. Every interview we've done has been on our own. The only time we ever asked them was Sandro Platzkummer, because Sandro Platzkummer isn't from America and thought he had to do everything by the book. And this wasn't Pat Hanlon. And I was like, hey, can you just clear it so he can do the interview? And no. He's like, check back in training camp. I was like, okay, but we don't want to interview Sandro Platzkummer in training camp. We want to interview him now because it's the summer and we have nothing to talk about. He said no. Okay. So
yeah, again, my only wish, and this is how I hope it is, this is how I hope the relationship is, and this is how I hope it stays, where, hey, we acknowledge that the Giants as a business or as a presence or whatever you want to call it, I acknowledge and we acknowledge that they exist, and whether you want to acknowledge us or not, just hey, we're there.
Just don't fuck with us.
Just we're there, man. And
don't fuck with us. We don't need your help. Don't fuck with us.
That's I tried to put it a little bit nicer than that, but yeah, just we're trying to be, we're sort of still, even though it's been a couple years now, we're sort of still new to this game. We're trying to grow what we're trying to grow, and we're trying to, we work for a company, and we're trying to be successful ourselves. We're trying to help our company, make money. That's what every business is. It's about making money, being profitable, and being successful. And that's what we're trying to do. And, let us kind of do our thing. And, as long as we're not flat out being disrespectful to any individual person or people or groups of people, I don't think there should be an issue. But also I root for the Giants. There is no other person that's rooting for the Giants more than really Bobby and I, because number one, we're fans. Like, we are fans of this team, and then number two, Talking Giants is doing much better if this team wins 10, 11, 12 games every freaking year than they do it when they win 2, 3, 4, 5 games every year.
It kills us.
It kills us as a quote unquote. It kills the Giants as a business, I'm sure, and I'm sure it's killing us as a business too. That they suck every single year. So
yeah,
that's
why training camp's important to us, because it's the only time where this team, we're not having to talk about a team that stinks. Or a team that's lost a bunch of has a losing record.
Yeah, so that's it.
So, all right, that's an episode. We'll be back Friday, preview pod without the preview part. We'll see you then. Until then, let's go Big Blue.